We'll get it over quick. Rangers first period under.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let's Bet It. Jared Smith, Mark Zinno here with you on this Sunday morning. Bit of a dreary Sunday here on the East Coast. And Mark, I think that sums up the night we had in the Final Four. Not our best effort, but as they say, onward and upward. And we're going to regroup this morning because we're going to not only recap what we saw last night and where our bets went astray, but then we're going to get you set, of course, for Monday night's national championship game. We're also going to touch on briefly, not a whole lot of action for me or Mark in this game, but we'd be remiss not to mention there is another national championship taking place tonight on the ladies' court between UConn and South Carolina. Also, of course, NHL, NBA, and our plays of the day coming up a little later in the show. But let's start out with what we saw last night. Mark, I tweeted you right before the game started that our cards looked exactly the same, and they both looked exactly the same afterwards, which was not good. Nova they ran into a buzzsaw in Kansas. Yeah. And when you look at what Kansas was able to do last night, I would say that was the best game I've seen them play all year.
Big fat bagel on the card yesterday. Swing and a miss, the golden sombrero 0 for 4. So, but look, I mean, here's what went wrong for Villanova backers. And as I said repeatedly, I was on Villanova Island for a while. I had no problem living there. I backed them against Houston. Their defense is amazing. Their free throw shooting the best in the nation. There's a lot of reasons to like Villanova, even without Justin Moore. I figured that Jay Wright was the one coach in America who knew how to handle that situation more than anything. And so it took an effort from Kansas. Get this, where Kansas averaged 1.38 points per possession last night. That's the highest mark against Villanova's defense, not only this season, Jared, not only this season and last season, not only since Villanova last won a national title, but in the last 5 years. And Kansas did that without scoring a single fast break point. Not one bucket in transition did they score last night. They were held to 58 possessions. That was the lowest number of possessions in a game for Kansas since 2016. Like, it took a shooting effort from the heavens for Kansas to be able to put together the game that they did. And they got it. I mean, that's just variance you can't eliminate when it comes to basketball. When you make 54% of your threes, no one is going to be able to handicap that. Oh, yeah, they're coming into this game, we're going to make 54%. They shot better from three than they did from the field. It's just, it was a phenomenal shoot. I'm not taking anything away from Kansas. It was a phenomenal shooting night. They played their hearts out. They absolutely deserved to be in the title game. It just was a game where it required that against a defense like Villanova, because Villanova was in the game for most of the game. Despite some droughts where they fell down by double digits, they got back into this thing, made it a 4-point game, made it a 6-point game. It just wasn't to be. There was way too much hot shooting from the Jayhawks.
Yeah, there were a couple moments where it was like the scene in Avengers Endgame with Hawkeye, "Don't give me hope." Like, there were a few moments where we had some hope that Nova was going to be able to come back and cover. When you mentioned those points per possession and the number of possessions for Kansas, the one thing that stuck out to me was just how, just unlucky. I don't want to say unlucky, but definitely unfortunate that the under didn't hit. Because, again, that game played out tempo-wise like an under. Yeah. But Kansas just made every single shot. I did hear Bill Self in the pregame presser, or maybe it was yesterday or 2 days ago, not last night, but a couple days prior, say that his team really does like shooting at the Caesars Superdome. I heard the rims were a little soft. We obviously saw both games go over. Is that something that you're going to take with you into Monday's handicap, knowing that you have two very hot shooting teams in Carolina and Kansas?
No, I mean, I think they got the sight lines down. Usually that's like a first half under thing, which is what I also took under 61.5 that didn't come in, because it takes them a little while to get adjusted to the sight lines and the different arena and the elevated floor and everything else. So that part of it usually only lasts about a half before teams get their legs under them, their eyes get fixed. So with both of them having played a game there, I think they're used to it. I don't think it plays in. What I do think plays in, I don't know if we want to get too far into the national championship though, is Kansas -2.5 in the first half. Do you know that there was only 12 non-starter minutes from UNC last night? The amount of emotional energy and physical energy that they expended in that game. That was their Super Bowl. There are a lot of Tar Heel fans who will turn around and tell you, who cares if they don't win the national championship? They ended Coach K's career. Like, that was everything to them. And so while I think UNC will probably stay within the 4.5, and I like them getting the 4.5, I love Kansas in the first half, -2.5. Kansas got deeper into their bench. They weren't pressed as hard. They weren't, emotionally or drawn into a game the way UNC was in a back and forth game that had 19 lead changes. Kansas sprinted out to a lead and really never looked back. They didn't really have to break a sweat, emotionally or mentally in that game. So I give them a huge edge in the first 20 minutes of the national championship game.
I think I totally agree. I think full game also. I already locked in the play. Kansas -4. We can definitely get into the Natty. It's going to be a 3-star play on Pickswise. I just sent it to the editors. They're going to have it up on the site. Maybe it's already up. I sent it right before the show. To your point, I have a very close friend from the New York area. She was a tennis player at UNC. I covered her in high school when I worked local news, and I, stayed connected with her over the years. She was the national champion tennis, star at North Carolina. Now she's on the pro circuit. I texted her last night. Hey, congrats. I texted her, the ceiling is the roof, like joking. She said, here's direct quote to your point. We already won. That was our Natty beating Duke. I don't care about Monday. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is from a professional athlete who is a North Carolina alum who's a diehard Tar Heels fan. And I know that I'm sure in the locker room they care about Monday, but the overall vibe, the emotional, output from having to win that game against Duke, which was back and forth. It was 18 lead changes, 12 ties. There was 30 moments in that game that were tilting in one direction.
Yeah.
The emotional recovery that it will take in less than 48 hours to come back from that, I think will be tough. Now let's talk about the physical recovery, because we can touch a little bit on what we saw at UNC Duke. I thought the most important part of that game was Armando Bacot getting hurt and then coming back. We're hearing sprained ankle. I think the adrenaline of the moment probably pushed him back into the game. Now he has 36 hours or so to rest. That's important because McCormick and Wilson on Kansas were dominant in the middle. I mean, they had no answer for McCormick. And Villanova's a tough defensive team, and they had no answer for him in the paint. Is that Bacot ankle tweak, in addition to Brady Manick not being a full big man, he's kind of a stretch big. To me, that's a big advantage for Kansas in the paint Monday night.
I don't know. I mean, the numbers say otherwise here, Jared. I mean, when you look at when you look at the last 3 games, even for the season, UNC is about 3.5 rebounds better than Kansas on the season. Now that's substantial. Over the last 3 games, you're talking about the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, and the national semifinal. They are 8 rebounds a game better than Kansas. And Kansas hasn't exactly played some high-level rebounding teams. I mean, Miami is not a good rebounding team by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like they're big on the glass. And Kansas's numbers, listen, Armando Bacot's had 20 rebounds in 3 consecutive games. They are getting.
I think he's going to be 100%, though. That's the question.
Fair point. Again, but with an 8 rebound advantage over the course of the last 3 games, if you want to get out in transition, because I don't think Kansas can win a game without scoring a single transition bucket again, you got to get rebounds. You have to get rebounds to be able to push the pace. If you're getting a bunch of rebounds from North Carolina, that's going to work heavily in their favor. So it'll be interesting to see how Bacot responds from the injury. But glass thing to me, the rebounding advantage for UNC is a major sticking point for me and not back in Kansas.
They had 50 rebounds against Duke. Now Duke had 41. There were a million shots in this game, and that's why there were so many rebounds. So I think it's unfair to list the number of rebounds as the reason. I think you need to look at the percentages, because Carolina plays more faster tempo, more possessions, more shots, more rebounds. So there might be a little bit of an, uncorrelated, advantage for UNC, the amount of total rebounds compared to their rebounding percentage. I mean, they gave up 41 rebounds against Duke too. And for example, there were only, I think it was 35-29, the rebounding edge for Kansas in the game against Nova. I mean, there was 91 rebounds in Duke, Carolina, and there was only 64 rebounds in Nova and Kansas. That just shows you the type of game it was on one side compared to the other. The tempo, the pace in that Carolina-Duke game was light years ahead of what we saw in Nova, Kansas. That is a very interesting dynamic as we get to the next game. Do you think Carolina is going to be able to set their tempo? I would imagine Kansas is going to want to slow things down. What's your early read on the tempo of what these games could or what this Monday night game could look like?
I mean, I would think early on that, again, Carolina will have a little bit of tired legs and Kansas can take advantage. But if I'm Hubert Davis, I'm just defending the three. And Agbaji played his best game of the tournament. He actually looked like one of the top 5 players in college basketball for the first time in this tournament. I mean, he had I think he only had 11 points against Texas Southern, only had 4 points against Providence. Like he's been there, but last night was the first time you felt his effect. And I would key on him. And I think him getting going early allowed other players to relax and get going. Because whether they admit it or not, he's so much of the cog of what they do offensively that when he is scoring, everybody else can relax a little bit because they know they can put the ball in his hands and everything's going to be okay. I would key on him and make his life living hell for the first couple of minutes and try to get that offense out of rhythm.
Yeah, the numbers are insane from this Duke UNC game last night. Baycott's stat line is almost something out of a video game. 11 and 21. Leaky Black was big on the glass too. 9 rebounds. RJ Davis. I mean, these are guards for Carolina. 9, 7 rebounds. So I think that's going to be key. I'll be honest. I didn't think Carolina shot it that well. 10 of 26. I mean, they took a bunch of threes. Manic was cold, and then he got hot late. And Caleb Love is just he's a flamethrower. I think if you asked me to handicap the 3 levels of the Monday night game, coach, backcourt, front court, I hate to say it, but I do think Bill Self gets a slight edge in the coaching department. He really proved to me over the last couple of weeks that, he can overcome things. Maybe his team just shot the lights out, and that was the reason why. But I give a slight edge to Self there. I think the backcourt, I give the edge to Agbaji over anyone else UNC has. He's the best player on the floor. And the front court, it's all about Baycott. If Baycott's healthy, Carolina has the edge. If he's not 100%, I give McCormick the edge. So, to me, that, UNC has the edge for sure in the backcourt, slight leans, front court, and coaching. Do you agree with those assessments, or would you give, Hubert Davis the coaching edge? And what about the backcourt situation?
I would give Carolina the coaching edge simply in the department that they're playing back-to-back on short rest, 2 similar offensive teams. It's Kansas that really has to make a hard pivot against a slow down, muck it up, ugly offense Villanova team, and how to stay defensively in possessions longer because Villanova will use 25 of a 30-second shot clock. That's not North Carolina. They'll play as fast as they can play. They'll take open shots. They'll take a ton of threes. And that, to me, is exactly what North Carolina just faced. The way Kansas plays is very similar to the way Duke plays. So they don't have to do much to change their offensive game plan to get around what they do. Now, Kansas can turn around and say, hey, let's just go back to doing what we do and play the way we play. We don't have to change anything up, and we'll be fine. But I think it does favor North Carolina a little bit to play similar teams back-to-back, whereas it's a harder pivot for Kansas.
Fascinating matchup. UNC right now, I looked at the splits this morning. Hold on. Let me pull them up. So the early splits, pretty even at MGM. I'm seeing actually dead even, 51-49 bet count, 53-47 handle, slight handle edge to UNC. UNC, though, is getting the lion's share of money line bets. That shouldn't surprise you. I'm already seeing it in our chat, a bunch of UNC money line love in the chat. And I would imagine UNC as an underdog is going to get a lot of support on the money line Monday night. We'll have more on this game, obviously, tomorrow. You have a point before we move on.
Let me just add one more thing. The word Cinderella and North Carolina are never in the same
Totally agree.
So
I don't care. The seeds mean absolutely nothing.
Remember, next to North Carolina, they have multiple banners hanging in their gym for national championship.
North Carolina.
Cinderella does not apply to North Carolina. Thank you. Let's just get that.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of comparisons to the last 8 seed that won the title, which was Villanova in '85.
Right.
That team, now, granted, you can't compare college basketball in 1985 to 2022. The game's completely different. Villanova hadn't made a name for themselves yet. They were an up-and-coming fledgling Big East team, and they were a Cinderella that year. They were not even supposed to be in the tournament, I don't think. You cannot compare North Carolina, who is arguably one of the top 10 teams, programs in the history of college basketball.
Right.
You can't. Maybe they are a top 10 program. I would say top 5, right?
Right. Loyola, Cinderella. George Mason, Cinderella. UNC, never.
Never. Absolutely not. Okay, let's move on. There is a ladies' game happening tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern, South Carolina and UConn. This is for all the marbles. I like how the women and men's tournament juxtaposes each other. Friday night, women's Final Four. Saturday night, men's Final Four. Sunday, women's title. Monday, men's title. It's a great college basketball weekend. I watched both of the games on Friday night. South Carolina did what they were supposed to do. Louisville was completely outmatched in that game. The UConn-Stanford game, completely different animal than what I expected. Stanford was ice cold from three. They could not make a shot, and UConn took advantage. I think Paige Beckers did what she needed to do. The rest of that UConn front line showed their experience, showed their grit. They were able to get across the finish line. Now we're seeing South Carolina laying 4-ish. I saw 4.5. I saw 3.5 in some shops. I know you're not playing this game. Any thoughts at all about women's college basketball and in general what you've seen from this tournament before I give out a little pick for it?
No.
I had to at least give you a chance, Mark.
I appreciate it. I have not watched any women's college basketball.
That's totally fair. I did get a text.
I'm not even going to wade into the pool.
That's totally fair. I did get a text message from one of the women's college basketball analysts that I'm friendly with. She told me on Friday night, she said she thinks the winner of the UConn-Stanford game will win it all. I'm hearing a lot of UConn chatter this morning. They're getting 4.5 at FanDuel, and the fact that they're 3.5 on some of the other shops, which I think are a little less sharp on some of these sports. I would lean South Carolina. They lost a heartbreaker last year to Stanford. Tough to lay 3.5 points in a championship game. I understand that, but I probably would lean on the Gamecocks here to get the job done. But I'm not betting it. No bet for me. I will be watching women's college hoops. We don't want to forget about you because it is a very quality product, and I hope some people enjoy it. All right, let's move on to the NHL. And both of us are kind of looking at we're both in a New York state of mind today with the NHL, Mark. I'll let you go first with these games.
Yeah, I mean, both New York games are ones that I'm on. One's my play of the day, so I'll save it for later. But the New York Islanders are at home the New York Islanders are taking on the New Jersey Devils, who are at home. Devils are on a back-to-back. They played last night. Islanders have won 3 in a row. They're probably too far out to catch in the wild card. They're 13 points behind the Capitals for the final wild card spot. But their offense is starting to click at the right time. They just shut out the Rangers the other night at Madison Square Garden. This is a Devils team that doesn't score a lot. Just double check and make sure Ilya Sorokin is playing in net for the Islanders before you place your wager today. If he is, he sat out on Friday night against the Rangers. But if he's their goaltender tonight, I love the Islanders on the puck line, -1.5 at +160. They're just going to outscore this team. The Islanders' offense is clicking right at the right time right now. Devils don't have a great defense by any stretch of the imagination, but the Islanders can score and have scored a lot lately. So I'll back the Isles here, -1.5 on the puck line.
I think it's Varlamov. And that might not be a bad thing. So I think Sorokin's a little banged up, and Varlamov, it was his first game. The Rangers game was his first game playing back-to-backs this year. He had not started in consecutive games all year. Varlamov's been, the backup, and Sorokin's been the starter, but Sorokin's a little banged up. Listen, but that might not be a bad thing. Varlamov 6-1-1 in his last 8. That's the most wins in the NHL since March 8th.
There you go.
So he's been playing really well. I was very close to making the Isles my play of the day on the 3-way money line. I got +105. So the playoff push is real. They're not completely dead. They're not looking great. They're on life support. They're like in a coma. But they're not – the plug has not been pulled. They're 13 points back of the Caps with 15 games left. They have 1 game in hand. It will take a massive push, but they have won 3 straight. And they're 10-3-1 in their last 14. They're playing really well. And I do think even if it is Varlamov, Mark, they have an edge in goal because the Devils are they're calling you and me to go play goalie for the Devils. They've started 7 different goalies this year, and that's one shy of the most ever in an NHL season. The Flyers started 8 different goalies in 1 year a few years ago. And Andrew Hammond yesterday was a disaster. They blew a 5-goal lead, I think. It was 5-1 Devils over Panthers, and they lost the game 7-6. I mean, it's been bad. They gave up 7 goals against the Panthers. Then they gave up 8 goals against the Bruins in they gave up 15 goals in their last 2 games. I can't back the Devils in this spot, but the line's a little funky, don't you? In my eyes, the Isles, who are rested, going for a playoff push, the Devils, who have literally nothing to play for with like the backup goalie, you would think minus 150, minus 160. That line's a little short, no?
Yeah, but again, I trust right now the way the Islanders are playing. They had such a rough start to the season. And they had to play their first 13, 14 games on the road because their arena wasn't ready,
Yeah.
wasn't completed. And then they had COVID issues. They just dug themselves such a hole. Look, in the big picture, this team still needs a goal scorer, but I like the way they're playing lately. They're getting hot at the right time, and they should take advantage today.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think the numbers from the season, which is they've struggled. They're not like an above 500 team. They're not one of those teams that have been a plus team this year. I think they might have just gotten back over 500. Yeah, they're over 500 now, but they're a team that's outside of the playoff picture. So their overall power ratings for the year is low. Maybe that's why the number is a little bit lower than expected, but it is a little bit of a fishy line with that Isles game today, because I would think that they would be at least, $2 favorites, but they're not. Right. So the way I'm playing it, I'm doing 3/4 of a unit, not quite a full play, not quite a lean. It's like a half a play, 3/4 of a unit on Isles three-way money line plus 100, because I do think they have an edge. All right, let's move on to you got one more play on the ice. No, you're going to save that for later, right?
For the day, yeah.
All right, so we're both talking about this Rangers Flyers game, but we're going to save it for play of the day because we think there's some value with the Rangers today. So let's move on to the NBA. You're down there in Atlanta. You had an interesting Hawks game last night. Listen, this is an Atlanta team that's fighting for the playoffs. Nice win over the Nets, who are also in that play-in situation. Mm-hmm. It looks like it could be Nets Hawks in the play-in game if things shake out. What have you noticed with this Hawks team over the last few games? I mean, they're hot. They won 5 in a row, 7 of 10.
Yeah, and they're getting hot at the right time. You knew that they had the ability to flip this switch because they did it last year, except they did it last year in the beginning of February. They didn't wait till, the last week of March, first week of April to get going. But still, this is a spot for the Hawks where it's got to be an immense confidence boost to know that if they end up getting Brooklyn in the play-in tournament, that they can hang with them. And they can do it without John Collins. That's really the impressive part. John Collins, I've said all year long, and I've handicapped a lot of their games for the Pickswise website. And my one thing about the Hawks is that they struggle offensively without Collins unless Trae Young goes off. Well, that's not really been the case. I mean, lately you've seen a lot of other people chip in, whether it's Bogdanovich, whether it's DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella. I mean, they're getting points. Even Okongwu is another player on the Hawks who's been, giving valuable minutes on the glass and on offense to this team. So Trae Young had a great night last night. I mean, Kevin Durant had a career high 55, and the Hawks still found a way to win. If you would have told me that Kevin Durant was going to score 55 last night, I would have taken my Hawks +1 ticket and used it as toilet paper. I mean, I would have thought it would have been useless. So it turns out the Hawks put together a great game. Remember, good teams win, great teams cover. And the Hawks did that last night. They also won. But, taking them on +1, I was a little bit hesitant, but I really felt like it was a good spot. And the Nets are just hard to be trustworthy at this point.
Yeah, interesting spot there. Cavs, another team on the playoff bubble. They beat the Knicks yesterday. Cleveland right now, it looks like the play-in game. There's only 4. Can you believe it's crazy? There's only 4 games left in the NBA regular season.
Yeah.
They're 2 back of the Bulls for the 6th spot. I mean, I'll just go out on a limb and say they're going to be that 7 seed. And that means that they face the Hawks in that 7-8 game, which would be a fascinating matchup if things stay there. And any inklings about where Cleveland's future might lie if they can get themselves into that top 8?
I don't believe that they will get into the top 6. They're destined for the play-in tournament. Don't like the way that they've been playing. In fact, I handicapped this game for the Pickswise website, and Jared even made it a 3-star play of the day. I'm going to back the Philadelphia 76ers here today, laying the 4.5. Look, Cleveland's last 3 wins have come against the Knicks, the Magic, and the Pistons. You know what they are? Not good. So they have not been playing their best brand of basketball. They're 2-7-1 against the number over their last 10. Their defense, statistically, is still one of the top ones in the league, but they're giving up 114 points per game over their last 10. That's a bad recipe against the Philadelphia team. 22-16 against the number on the road this year, and certainly a team that has the better offense. Cleveland's going to be playing catch-up. Unless they come out with a major defensive effort and Philadelphia's not making shots, they're playing catch-up here. Philly probably gets into the 120s and covers this thing.
Yeah, I'm seeing it right now. 3-star play. Got a few 3-star plays, which we'll get to in a little bit on the site, and Mark is certainly part of that equation. So am I. I've got one for Monday night, as we mentioned, with Kansas. All right, let's get into my play today on the NBA floor, which is going to be a prop. And I literally gave this play out on Friday. Same exact prop, same exact player, same exact number, same exact spot. Nikola Jokic, over 21.5 rebounds and assists. If you've been following the show this past week, you know we made an investment on Jokic in the futures market. I parlayed that, or I guess slightly hedged that on Friday night with a Giannis MVP play. So I've got dueling MVP spots. If it's Giannis or Jokic, will come out on top. I think it'll be one of those guys based off of the play that we've seen of late. But today, the Nuggets take on the Lakers, and this is a Lakers team, as we've talked about. The bottom is dropping, and I don't know where the bottom really is, but it's continuing to fall. And I think Jokic is going to continue to put the hammer down in this MVP race. Again, there's only a few games left for him to really sway the conversation in his direction. He's done a great job over the last few weeks. He's gone over this rebounds and assist combo in 3 straight. He had 12 and 13 in a blowout win over the Lakers a couple months ago, and he only played 28 minutes in that game. Nuggets up 2 games on the T-Wolves for the 6th spot in the West. They need to keep winning games to stay in the top 6. And even the dog likes his play, as he's a little bit upset that I'm not giving him enough attention right now. But I think Jokic goes over 21.5 rebounds and assists. I got it at -120 over at FanDuel. You got one more play for you on the NBA board tonight, too, with Orlando, right?
Purely situational spot. I'm going to take the Magic getting 5 points against the Knicks. The Knicks should be laying 5 points against anybody right now. They've shut down Julius Randle. He's not going to play. So their offense is out the window. And any sort of motivation after getting eliminated from the playoffs this week, also out the window. It's just way too many points for the Knicks to be laying. It wouldn't shock me if the Magic won the thing outright. I'm not going to go so bold as to put a money line play on the Magic. But that said, I'll take the 5 points. I think both of these teams, at least one of the two of these teams, don't get to 100 in this game. So if that's the case, it's enough for me not to back the Knicks without Julius Randle. I'll take the Magic +5.
Yeah, it's been a rough season for my Knicks. I don't know what the answer is with this team. They were so good last year, and it was just the exact opposite this year. It's impossible to lay points with the Knicks. All right, let's get into plays of the day. I will start with some 3-star looks. Zeno just mentioned he's got one. We talked about the Sixers against the Cavs. I like that spot for Philly. Philip Tomic has a play on the Wizards-Celtics game I encourage you to check out. Mark Lammy has a play on the Coyotes-Blackhawks game. Hermantas Nida, Spurs-Blazers. Yours truly, of course, North Carolina-Kansas for Monday night. And we also have our first Masters play on the site. Mark, are you going to be betting the Masters next week?
Probably not. I'm going to sit back and enjoy it and watch it.
You're a Georgia guy. You got to bet the Masters. Come on.
I know, but listen, I root for my guys in golf. I love Brooks Koepka, love Jordan Spieth. So I like to see those guys have great rounds, but then you just get to watch some really good golf. It's so much fun. And as much as I've been here in Georgia, I have yet to get to the Masters. It's on my bucket list. I got to make sure I do it before I
depart. Got to go down there. I've been pushing for a Pickswise outing down there. I think it's too soon now. Maybe next year we'll do a Pickswise live show from Augusta. I can tell you that next week we have some really, really exciting Masters coverage planned. We'll obviously have Teddy Greenstein on as well. And we have a new guest that just signed a deal with Pickswise last week. I don't want to blow up her spot too much, but I can promise you that she is very talented and she is very knowledgeable on all things PGA related. And she will be on next week to give us some Masters picks. But as I just mentioned, there is a 3-star play already on the site. Ian Wilkerson has an outright winner for the Masters next week. So there is a bevy of 3-star plays on the site today. NBA, NHL, college hoops, and PGA. Head to Pickswise.com. Check it out. All right, Mark, now is the time, my friend. Your play of the day. What do you got?
Going to stay in the Metropolitan Division in the NHL. New York Rangers, Philadelphia Flyers. First period under 1.5 at +112. Rangers, third best first period under team in the league. Philadelphia, one of the worst offenses in the league. I get Igor Shesterkin in net for the Rangers. I have very little concerns about the Rangers holding up their end of the bargain. I don't think Philly scores in the first period here. It is possible the Rangers could come out and dump two, but I'm banking against it given the slow pace of the Rangers offense. Rangers Flyers, first period under. Today, my play of the day.
You are the first period maven, my friend. I'm sticking with that Rangers game, and I'm just fading the Flyers. I mean, this is a team that I think is completely given up, and they're on short rest. They lost to the Leafs yesterday 6-3. This is a bounce-back spot for the Rangers. They got shut out, which is not something you can say a lot about this very good Rangers offense very often, but the Isles just seem to have their number, especially at the Garden. They lost 3-0 to the Isles in that game. And the playoff race in the Metro Division is very fascinating. Pittsburgh and New York are neck and neck for the 2-3 seed, and that matters. That seeding matters. Home ice in the first round definitely matters. The Rangers have a little bit of a leg up now. They've got 1 point in the bank against Pittsburgh, and they're also just 5 points back of Carolina for first place in the division, and there's still 13 games left. So the Rangers have a chance to continue to climb the standings today, and they have a massive edge in net. Igor Shesterkin has been fantastic this year. He's got a little bit of rest as well. 32, 10, and 3, plus 32 goals saved above expected. Him and Anderson of the Hurricanes are the two best netminders in the league, and their analytics certainly show it. Meanwhile, for the Flyers, remember they played yesterday. They gave up 6 goals. It'll be their backup netminder today, Martin Jones, who is 8-14 and 3, and he's a minus 4.1 goals saved above expected. Massive edge for the Rangers in terms of rest. Massive edge for the Rangers in terms of net minding. We are going to lay 1.5 with New York against Philly, and that's our play of the day. Hopefully we get back on track. Rough game yesterday for us back in Nova, plus 4.5. I'm just going to – that'll be the last time I mention yesterday's picks, Mark. We're just going to flush it like Jalen Hurts. Flush it, not look at it, and move on, right?
Dead and buried. Put it out of its misery and keep moving on.
That's it. So we're going to keep moving on. We appreciate you hopping on with us here on this Sunday. For Mark Zinno, I'm Jared Smith. Enjoy your last day of the weekend, and we're going to have another fun show for you tomorrow night for College Hoops. But for now, let's bet it.